So thank you very much, Johnny, for joining me. Really great to have you here. You have been doing some fantastic stuff with Unlimited, and I just wanted to have a chat with you, get to know a bit more about you and the beer and what's been going on. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, great. No, thanks for having me. I always love, well, I obviously love talking about alcohol-free, the sector and talking about unlimited. So thank you for having me.
Start where you'd like to start, but could you take me back to the beginning and tell me a little bit about your journey?
Of course, yeah. So I founded the business in September 2019. We launched in June 2020, but before that, I worked in the City of London. I was a tailor. So I used to go around to guys' offices in the city and measure them up for suits and shirts and things. So I was a glorified sort of salesperson, basically. I did that for 7 years, and it was quite a fast-paced sales role, going out for drinks with colleagues.
Yeah.
I was 25 when I started, so there was a lot of going out socializing, going out with clients. And it was sort of, going out Thursday after work, Friday, Saturday and Sunday with friends. And in your 20s, well, in my 20s, you could just bounce back and just, keep performing and, keep going. But when it was like a light switch in when I hit 30, and a couple of beers were just really making me feel groggy. And then hangovers just got horrendous for me, and then it would affect my work, and I'd be grumpy and stuff. And then when I got married to my wife Antonia, I had too many shots of tequila on our wedding night. Basically, all of my friends kept buying me shots, and
Oh
I
God.
was really ill after that,
Oh no.
and then I just stopped drinking for 3 months because I just wanted to. I just thought alcohol's not doing me any favors.
Yeah.
Even small amounts would make me feel crap. So yeah, so then I decided to stop drinking, and then it was sort of, after a few weeks started to feel all the benefits of not drinking anything, not drinking any alcohol. Then discovered alcohol-free beers. Some were really good. The ones in bars and pubs I didn't think were that good, like the big brands, but the craft brands were really good.
So tell me about that then. So did you have much knowledge or experience of alcohol-free beers before that time, or was it just something you would just ignore?
No, none at all, really. I'd never drink them when I was out. I probably drank, one bottle of Beck's Blue in from when I was 18 to 30. It was just never something that I would have picked, because the culture at that time, it was, there was sort of that booze Britain culture in my 20s. It was like, there's lots of going out. So when I stopped drinking, I then sort of missed the taste of beer, because I liked drinking beer. I like the
Yeah.
flavour. So then a friend of mine who'd given up drinking said, "I'll try these alcohol-free beers," and then I was pleasantly surprised by some of them. So yeah, that's sort of how it all began.
By some, not all.
Not all, no. It was, well, that's sort of what led me to start Unlimited, because it was when I was out, I'd still have to go out and socialise with friends and with clients. And the alcohol-free beers, there was normally one option in the pub at the time, or the bar, and just didn't taste great. So I drink like lemonades or
Yeah.
cranberry juice, which just sort of, it's just, well, lemonade's just full of sugar, and just didn't really feel like I was sort of partaking in the event, if you like.
Absolutely. You feel kind of othered, don't you? If you're just having an elderflower and soda again, and
Yeah.
everyone else has got a pint or a bottle of beer, then you're like, well, I'm a grown up too. I don't just want lemonade.
I know, exactly, and that's sort of, when I just thought that, oh, they weren't great, but then when I discovered these smaller craft brands online, which you could get from certain online retailers, tried them, I was like, they're really good. They taste really good, and that sort of then was like my light bulb moment. And I was thinking, well, why aren't these in pubs and bars? And that was just my ignorance of how, not knowing how the hospitality sector worked. And I was
Yeah.
just like, right, I'm going to start an alcohol-free beer brand, and I'm going to get it in the pubs. And that's sort of, that was my first thought. And then, yeah, 3 years later, here we are.
So you had no experience in anything to do with hospitality or brewing or booze or anything like that before?
No, no. The only experience I had was, just consuming it. So no. If I'd have known how it worked or known the industry, I probably wouldn't have started the business. But ignorance is bliss, right?
I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were saying that if most entrepreneurs knew what they were getting themselves into, they probably wouldn't do it.
Exactly. And it makes it fun, right? Because you're just learning every day. Like, we had a business sort of strategy day on Monday and Tuesday, and I learn new stuff every day about the industry, and that makes it more exciting because because when I was when I was selling suits, did that for 7 years, and after 7 years, it's just like I sort of know what I'm doing now, and it just gets a bit mundane, if you like. So
Sure, sure, absolutely. Like, okay, it's another suit. It's a great suit, but it's another suit.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you got inspired, you thought there's just not enough good choice out there. I want to do something. So take me through some of that journey. So you had no experience. How do you start? How do you get into making beer?
When I sort of thought to myself, why aren't these good alcohol-free drinks in pubs and bars? I started to think about a career change and go and work for one of these brands and sell them into pubs and bars. But then I thought, well, you know, why don't I just start my own? And I read one of the stories, one of the sort of founder stories from one of the other brands, and it wasn't a dissimilar story to mine, right? The guy who started it was he worked in the city, no sort of previous experience in brewing, and I sort of read his story and I thought, well, if someone else has done it, then I can probably do it. And then I just Googled like brewing consultants and sort of, probably spent a month calling around, being passed sort of from pillar to post, eventually found someone who could help me develop a low alcohol, no alcohol beer. And then we just started doing test brews. And then I registered the business on Company's House and bought the website domain, and then just started to build it from there. So then, what's a bottle going to look like? What's the name of the brand going to be called? And that's the most difficult thing that I think I've ever done, trying to think of a name for a brand. We spent weeks and weeks going over it, me and my wife. But then, so we took 10 months sort of in development stage, and then we landed on the taste that we liked. Then we sent it off to get nutritionally tested. So one of the things, when I was researching about alcohol-free beer, discovered that it can be nutritional, or there can be nutritional drinks or healthy drinks. But no one really sort of promoted that or shouted about the benefits. And I just thought that was a bit of a silver bullet, really, because I was living a healthier lifestyle. When I wasn't drinking, I would have picked a healthier beer.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
then
makes sense.
my sort of brief to the brewer was like, look, I want to create a healthy beer, low calories, with vitamins, vegan, gluten-free, tick off all the health credentials. So yeah, so when we landed on taste we liked, then we tested it, sent it off to get tested, and it came back super low calories, naturally occurring vitamins, and then we sort of did our first big run. Well, it was, I say big run, 2,000 bottles, and then, or 5,000 bottles, sorry. And then we launched the website in June 2020. So while we were in lockdown, and then sort of just gone from there.
Wow, that's a brave, bold time to launch. I wanted to ask you, you said it took a while to come up with the name, and that was one of the hardest things. So two questions there is why unlimited? What led you to come to that? And are you prepared to share any of the names that you didn't choose?
Oh, do you know what? I'll answer the first question first and I'll come on to the second one after. So I don't know if you've seen the film Limitless with
Yes.
Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, great film.
Yeah, where he takes a pill. He's a bit of a bum, takes a pill, makes him super switched on, super like, he ends up becoming president or something like that at the end of the film. But I love that film, and the feeling that I got. So when 3 weeks off the booze, I started to feel like limitless. That's the best description I could make. So I didn't have a problem with drinking before, but I was the regular drinker, right? Where it was most weekends, going a few beers. So, and my life, probably from when I was 18 and probably a bit before, there probably wasn't a period where I hadn't had a beer or a glass of wine that was, a gap longer than 4 or 5 days,
Yeah,
because it was
yeah.
like every week, right? So when I stopped drinking, and after 3 weeks of no alcohol, it obviously your body realizes it, right? That you haven't got that in your system anymore, and it gets rid of everything that was in your system before. So I just had this like clarity. My mind opened up. I felt super switched on. I was super alert. I felt limitless. So that's what I wanted to call the beer. And then again, with my sort of ignorance about, I was like, well, I've got to trademark the name. And then I looked, and there's a brewery in the US, I think, that had limitless beer.
Oh, okay.
Couldn't have that. So then when we were playing around with different connotations, and then landed on unlimited. And then obviously then we thought that was like, it's perfect because you can drink unlimited amounts of it. You can have unlimited beer. So that's where the name came from.
Okay. Makes sense. And are
Um,
you prepared to tell me? I'm always interested to know because, I went through a similar thing recently trying to name the magazine and trying to come up with some ideas, and you're just sort of like shooting in the wind, right?
I've got to try and think now. So the only memory, the only real sort of strong memory that comes to the forefront of my mind are the names that my mum gave, and they were horrendous. They were. Every now and again, my mum would WhatsApp me with names, and I'm like, Mum, just stop messaging me.
I love you, Mum, but no.
I
I
can't
know.
remember though, but they were rubbish.
In a nutshell, just rubbish.
Yeah. But it's difficult as well. I think one of the biggest problems was finding a name that hasn't been used. So because I had big ambitions for the brand to become a big brand, right? And it's sort of, the first thought is, you've got to make sure you protect it from the very early days. And I think there was a number of names that we probably landed on that when we checked the trademark register, they were already used. But Unlimited, we were very happy with that. And I always like to reference that movie because so many more people now are moderating, right, or not drinking,
Yeah.
compared to a few years ago when we started. And when people would say to me, like friends who hadn't, stopped drinking, they'd say, how do you feel? And I was like, I feel limitless. And
Yeah.
it's the best way I could describe the feeling. And who wouldn't want to feel like that? So
Yeah.
it was a good analogy to use.
So let's stick with the beer then. Tell me about the range.
So we launched with our lager, which is the silver label. So this is only 23 calories a bottle. It's got vitamins B6 in there and B12, which are naturally occurring from the ingredients we use. It's vegan and gluten free. Our lager's like a light, crisp, refreshing lager.
Yeah.
So it's like a perfect sort of lawnmower beer, or in the summer, first quenching. And lager was the drink that I've always drank before started Unlimited, so that's why I wanted to launch that. And then
What
we
you knew.
launched that with our IPA. It was about 18 months after. So the IPA is the gold label. It's the lowest calorie beer that we know of. It's 13 calories a bottle.
That is, wow.
So that's less than an apple. So it's like super low calories, vitamins B12 in there, again, vegan and gluten free. And this is more tropical citrus sort of flavors. It's a lot hoppier. I moderate now, so I'm not completely sober. So I really like IPAs because they pack a lot of flavour. So yeah, that's the two beers we've got in our range, and that's sort of what we're sticking with.
Okay, so no plans at the moment to launch another one?
No, we are thinking. So our beers are 0.5%, which can be sort of classed as alcohol free in Europe, or it's sort of low alcohol, the terminology here. So you can't. It doesn't affect you in any way. But we are thinking about producing a 0%. It's just my experience with 0% is that I've not found one that really delivers on that flavour and taste that I like. And so I'm like sort of like chief taste tester, if you like. If I like it, then I'm happy. But
Yeah.
I've not found a 0% one that I like. But we are speaking with some breweries who can apparently produce really good 0%. So that will be the next one at some stage.
That's exciting. And I suppose there's a lot of tasting going on then. So you're just sort of out there trying everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I always look at what the other brands are doing. Some of the big brands, most of the big brands now, obviously, they're making their low or no versions of their beers. Some of them are really good as well. So the technology is massively improved in the last few years. So I'm confident we'll be able to make a great tasty 0%, because 0% will open up new markets for us. Some people would prefer to drink a 0% over 0.5. We've sold 0.5 for the last 3 years, and it's very popular. But 0%, it just gives us another segment of the market, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So on your website, and I think on your Instagram, you refer to yourself as a new age beer. What does that mean?
So there used to be a bit of a connotation with alcohol-free beer, and it had a bad rep, right? From back in the day when there was the Caliber was the beer that most people will reference, which apparently didn't. I've never tasted it, but apparently it didn't. It never tasted great, and it sort of gave alcohol-free beer a bad rep. So we look at Unlimited now. We look at it like it's beer. It's brewed with the same methods, using the same ingredients, and it tastes the same. The only difference is that if you drink 3 or 4 of them, you won't feel tipsy, you won't get drunk. So it's a new version of beer. That's what we mean by new age beer. We don't want to keep calling it alcohol-free beer, non-alcoholic beer. It's just
Right.
it's a new type of beer.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of sort of terminology out there, isn't there, for all of the alcohol free and the low alc and the dealkalize and the remove, and it's all quite, there's so much out there for people to take on board and
Yeah,
to sort of understand where things are at. That I think just being able to say, look, it's a really nice beer. It tastes really great, and you're not going to feel like crap.
exactly. And the terminology that's used and like in government legislation, it's all a bit sort of a grey area, and it's not really correct, right? So 0.5% beers are supposed to be called dealkalized. We
Yeah,
don't dealkalize our beer. So there's a few ways of making alcohol-free beers. You can brew to full strength, remove the alcohol afterwards by vacuum distillation, but we brew up to 0.5, so there's no sort of extracting alcohol out. So it's dealkalized is the wrong term, but
yeah,
that's what government legislation says we should call it. I think that is all changing now, that it's going through Parliament about what you can call alcohol free, because in Europe 0.5 is classed as alcohol free.
yeah.
So
And
if
here
it
we're
be,
0.05, aren't we? So it's
yeah,
and then if you get an imported beer, it could be a different classification than if you get one that's brewed here. The people are just confused.
exactly. So you can get, if beers are imported from Europe into the UK, they could be 0.5% and called alcohol free, labelled as alcohol free, but you're not supposed to do that in the UK. So again, it does confuse people. But there's been lots of research, lots of studies about the effects of drinking a 0.5% beer, and it's basically impossible to have any effects from it because your body processes the alcohol as quickly as you consume it. There's some very scientific explanation behind it, which I can't remember, but it's that's the in a nutshell, that's the outcome. So we launched in lockdown, and then we've done a couple of sort of trade shows, exhibitions, and then we've only done a couple sort of consumer events, and Balance Festival was one of them. And what we really enjoy about it is that when there's so many people who came up to our stand and they're like, oh, alcohol free, oh no, and there was one example in particular where this guy was just like, no, I won't drink that, no, but. And I was just like, I said, well, what? I was like, do you like beer? And he said, yeah. I was like, well, just try it. And he
Yeah,
tried it, and his first expression on his face was like he was telling himself he wasn't going to like it, and he goes, oh, that's actually all right. And it's seeing that sort of surprising people that
yeah,
alcohol-free beer actually does taste like beer.
yeah, yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
what we get. I
I think
really
you're
enjoy.
right though. It's that sort of that history of, like you said, the only one you probably tried was Beck's Blue or the Caliber, and they don't have the best reputations about flavor. So people are sort of like, oh no, I've tried one once and I'll never try it again. But there is so much innovation out there at the moment. So
Yeah,
many coming through. I wanted to ask you as well about something that you mentioned previously. When you were still drinking, you'd go out with the lads for the weekend, or have a few beers, which is what 99% of the British population do. It's part of our culture, isn't it? It's that
yeah.
that having a pint on the weekend or with a Sunday roast. How have you found it in terms of maybe your mates? Probably like your closest research group, aren't they? And the blokes that because your branding is quite sleek, quite clean, and quite masculine in the way that it looks. How have you found the response from the blokey blokes who you previously knew or would have been drinking with in terms of the alcohol-free range?
So, well, one of my best mates, who I used to, I spent my 20s going out with him every weekend, and when I said to him I'm stopping drinking for 3 months, he wasn't happy about it, right? Because he was like, oh, I'm losing my mate. Who am I going to go out with? Or,
Yeah,
you're going to go home early, and all this
yeah,
sort of stuff. And that was in 2019 when I did that 3 month break from the booze, and there's a lot of peer pressure then, right? But I've since then I've got married and we've had 2 daughters in the last 3 years, and so my life's changed massively. But I think perception around alcohol, and one of the reasons that the design of the brand of the bottles was that I used to go out into bars in the city, and they're nice, really nicely furnished, and the brands that were available were sort of it was like a beacon, right? So a Beck's Blue was the one that everyone knew, and people would always call you out if you're drinking a Beck's Blue
right.
at the time. Or if you drink, I used to drink cranberry juice, right, or lemonade, and people would call you out for that. So I
Yeah.
thought, well, if I'm designing an alcohol-free beer, I want it to look cool, right, and look nice, and people would be like, oh, that looks nice. What's that? So that's sort of the inspiration behind the sort of the design of the brand. But I think that the perception now has changed massively, because when I'll go out, I'll drink alcohol-free beer at home during the week, and then if I go out to the pub, I'll have a full strength beer, because I do it very few and far between now. But when I'm out, when I do go out, you see alcohol-free beer on a lot of tables or in people's hands. Compared to before, it was like very rare you'd see it. So the market has shifted massively, especially with the younger generation. But going back to sort of it being quite a masculine brand, we've got, based on what we can see from our website, the people who order, it's a real 50-50 split between men and women's names. And maybe that's because I think alcohol-free wines, there are some good ones now, but alcohol-free wines never been that great, my personal view. So
They're bringing up the rear. They are with the wines. They've got a much further way to go than the beers and the spirits.
Yeah, spirits are amazing as well. They've done really well. So yeah, sort of a long answer to your question, but it's definitely changed the perception. So I don't think people sort of pull you up on it anymore.
No, and how about, and as well, the perception, not just from the consumers, but the bars as well. So first of all, congratulations to you. Am I right in saying that you've recently got an agreement with Drake and Morgan, and
Yes. Yeah.
your beers, which is just fantastic, are now in, is it all of their venues?
Yeah. So all the Drake and Morgan venues in London and Manchester.
That's absolutely huge. So congratulations on that, because
Thank you.
they are, a very well-known, very respected, high-end kind of venue. It's not just your, backstreet boozer kind of place there. You're getting a great clientele going in there. What was it like in comparison to a few years ago when you would have been trying to, you said, oh, I've decided I'm going to start this beer and it's going to go in all the pubs.
Yeah.
And you were chasing your tail for a while.
Yeah.
And now you're in Drake and Morgan. That must have been such a shift. How was it starting that kind of conversation?
So for the first 18 months we were in business, we were sort of in and out of lockdowns, and the hospitality sector was on its knees, right? So there wasn't really anything happening during that time. And it was literally myself working in this office by myself, running the business. My wife had given birth to our first daughter a month before we launched. So she works with me now full time. She is like a co-founder really with the business, because she's been there the whole time, but we've had two young daughters. But the Drake and Morgan listing was like our dream listing, because there's one of the Drake and Morgan bars, the Anthologist, is where I spent a lot of Friday nights after work. The office was opposite. I met my wife Antonia in the Anthologist. We had our first date in the Anthologist.
Oh, wow.
And we had an engagement party in the Anthologist.
It
And
was
then,
it's written in the stars.
I know. And then more recently, we had last year, we had like our first sort of board meeting, our advisory board meeting. We had it in one of the City Point, the refinery. So Drake and Morgan has always been like, it's a perfect venue, and I've always wanted to get in there. And I think we approached them initially probably 18 months ago when we were coming out of COVID, and they're a very reputable brand to get listed with. So it's a really big win for us. And then we're speaking to a number of other operators of similar sort of caliber. So hopefully in the next couple of months we'll have some new big wins like that. So yeah, it's very exciting.
That is hugely exciting. Well done, because you must have been over the moon when you signed that deal off.
I was. We were very happy, and like I said, when we did they did like a tasting event with all of their staff before launching their new menu, and so we went along to that, and the owner of Drake and Morgan's was there, Gillian, and I was just telling everyone about me and Tony meeting in Anthologist, and so they love it. They love the backstory, because it's sort of we met at one of their bars, and the inspiration of the brand is sort of based on the interior of Drake and Morgan type. It's more premium looking. So yeah, it's all sort of connected.
Yeah, and I could see, I mean, I haven't been to one for a long time, but I could perfectly see those bottles looking amazing on the back bar there. They fit in just perfectly, don't they?
So yeah, so if you're near any Drake and Morgans, do go in. And we've just got our IPA in there.
Okay.
The lager's not in there, and that goes back to sort of my ignorance before starting the brand about knowing how the hospitality sector works. So some of the big brands have big contracts with a lot of operators, and it's difficult to navigate those. But the IPA we can get in with because there's not many non-alcoholic IPAs, and it's my favourite beer as well out of the two. So it's
Yeah, then.
yeah.
Perfect. I wanted to ask you about your crowdfunding because I believe you are in the middle of doing that at the moment.
Yeah, so we've actually just closed the round. So we were raising investment on Cedars, which was the last sort of couple of months, but we closed it 2 weeks ago. We've raised some investment which will enable us to increase our marketing efforts, increase our on-trade presence. So we've got a team of people now that work with us. So obviously it's myself, Antonia, my wife. We've got a group of advisors who are got hospitality experience and connections, and then we've got Nat who does our marketing for us. So growing the team and just growing our sort of presence.
That must feel really good going from, like you said, being in that office just yourself, a few years ago, and now you've got this whole team around you and you're collecting investment.
It's exciting. We had a sort of strategy meeting on Monday and Tuesday this week with the whole team and the advisors, and just working out like our next 6, 12, 18-month plan. And it's we've got big plans, and retail's obviously a huge goal for us in getting to supermarkets, and we're in talks with a couple of supermarkets at the moment. So there's lots of exciting things going on, and it's just really exciting and just a bit surreal. A few years ago, I was measuring guys, waists and inside legs, and now
And look at you now. I know what you mean though. I know it's sometimes you look at where you are and you're like, but how did I get here? It was an idea and now it's a real thing and you're making it happen. You are. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So where should people go if they want to find out more about you? If they want to buy your beers, if they want to know what's going on with your future plans, if they want to just hang out with Johnny, where do they go to find you?
So the best place is probably our website, www.unlimited.beer. So that's UNLTD.beer.
Yep.
Not .com, not .co.uk, .beer. And on there, if people sign up to our mailing list, we're always keeping our customers and people who want to know what's going on, we're always keeping them updated with new listings, where they can find us. There's a good find us page on our website with a map of all of our stockists. We're based in Hertford, just north of London, but we're stocked all over the country and 14 countries around the world. So we've got some of our export venues on there as well. We're on Amazon as well. Yeah, Drake and Morgan, and then there's loads of independents that stock us, and we're hopefully going to have some exciting news to announce in the next month or two. So,
okay, all right. So we need to get on that newsletter and start following to see what this exciting news is. I'm intrigued. So before I let you go, everyone I speak to, I like to ask them this because I think we need to spread the love. We need to spread the no alcohol love to all the brands. So you're on your way out, you're off to a mate's house party, and you decided you're not drinking for this evening. Other than the fantastic Unlimited, what are you bringing to the party?
So in terms of beer, the beer that converted me to alcohol-free beer was Big Drop.
Okay.
Big Drop's lager. I drank that in a bar in Shoreditch when I was sort of doing my research, and I was walking around, and the founder, Rob's a great guy. I've met their team at a number of events we've done. They're a great brand. I love Big Drop, and their beers are great. And Caleno spirits are really nice.
Nice.
So my wife really likes them. And then in terms of wine, Naughty.
Yes.
Noughty. Their red wine is really good.
Great. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a real pleasure speaking to you. Keep us in the loop with those closely guarded updates. I'm very intrigued to know what's going on. And thanks for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me, Denise. It's been great chatting to you, and I'll keep you posted, and hopefully you'll hear some exciting stuff coming through.